So let's jump back to the first record in our database and discuss a bit about tagging and coding. Notice at the right side of the screen we have what we call layouts in relativity. Layouts are web-based coding forms storing the bibliographical data and metadata about a record, as well as the tagging and coding structure used by the review team. They are highly customizable and completely secureable from user to user and from group to group. Right now I'm logged in as a power user, so I have access to all of these different coding forms. This form is actually called coding, and it looks like it's concerned with a lot of issue tags here. The one called first pass review looks like it has a very limited amount of information. If I were a first pass reviewer, my options would likely be locked down to this coding form, and I wouldn't see all these others here on the list. I also have visions to forms that include the decisions that I need to make. There's one here for assigning documents, another for a priv log, and a form called all fields that appears to be only a read-only metadata about the record. I'm going to hop back to the coding layout where I can place rules on the layouts to ensure that the quality and consistency of review. For instance, I can make a field read-only like this control number or this custodians field, and even though I'm in the edit mode now in this form, I cannot edit these fields. There's also this orange box, which is an indication that the field is required throughout relativity. So for this particular coding form, it looks like responsiveness is a required decision. If I were to uncheck any values and try to save it, it's not going to allow me to do so. It's going to throw up an error. We can also set up propagation rules. So let's say I tag this record as privileged, and I want that designation to automatically propagate to other records in the family or duplicates in the system. I can use this copy from previous rule and allow others to copy the coding decisions from one document to the next before saving. This is quite useful when batches of documents are assigned out to reviewers based on conceptual similarity, where quite often the documents will be coded the same. We could also set up advanced logic for one of these to enforce best practices and workflow rules. Maybe in this particular review, there's a rule that says at this stage, the record cannot be tagged as privileged and responsive at the same time. So if I were to try to tag as privileged and responsive, save and next, it's going to tell me that this document cannot be marked as responsive and privileged. Or if we wanted to go to a different place in the review and someone else was going to tag this as privileged, maybe we want to have them pick a deeper determination with one of the subtypes. So at that point, maybe we give them a warning that a privileged subtype must be selected for these documents. We can even set up rules where if someone comes in and tags a document as super hot, we want them to leave a comment explaining that designation, or if they tag a document as en fuego, in addition to leaving comment, we shoot off an email to the lead partner in the case saying something like this document has been tagged as en fuego and here's a hyperlink. You might want to take a look. Some review platforms allow you to record as reviewed, but we can set up some smart criteria to manage this process. So maybe responsiveness, confidentiality, and privilege, if they've all been addressed, we can automatically have the document flagged as reviewed and shoot it off to a second level reviewer. So what I'm really trying to do is give you the tools to sit down with your case team, come up with the best practices workflow for review, and then solidify and automate those features. This way, everyone has the decisions, documents, and information they need in a very fluid and automated way without tons of extraneous noise with matters that don't concern them. Does anybody have any questions about layouts and relativity? I'm going to finish up the core reviewer interface by talking about related items pane, where we can put the different relational groupings about a record. Right now I'm showing the family grouping to this record. So I have the original email here. With the attachment to the email, I can see the Excel document, the PowerPoint, the Word doc in Korean, and even that document that had track changes. Maybe I don't have those propagation rules for families turned on. However, I know that these records are all responsive. What I can do is choose all 6, take a mass action, edit them, and mark them all as responsive in this pane. Down here, I also have our duplicate pane. And here I can see that this table is fully customizable. Here we're showing control number and location, but if instead of location, we could change it to show the privilege designation because we want to do a QC of how duplicates of privileged documents are being coded in the system. We can also view similar document information, and that's where we're using the similar document detection that's built into Relativity powered by Analytics Engine, or if we've processed the data through another tool prior to bringing it into Relativity. Relativity also keeps a full audit history of every user action in the system, identifying whether records are reviewed, updated, who did it, when they did it, was it one of the propagation rules we talked about, or did they directly edit the record? I can click details to look. And I can export this audit history of the record, or I can filter down into it. Maybe I'm only interested in the updates to this record, so I can see every update that has happened to the record. As a side note, all things that we audit can be reported on. So whether you want to see how far we are into the review based on responsive designations or productivity reports to understand how many documents per hour or edits per hour our reviewers are making, all this can be run into Relativity inside of the application. Finally, circling back, we have a full production history. I can see that AS01, so I can see all the productions AS01 was associated with, the dates that they were produced, and the beginning and ending Bates numbers. And I can kick that out to Excel if I want to. Maybe I want to see and look and see how the document actually looked when it was part of the Acme production. I can see that in September 2008, so what I'm going to do is go up to my Productions Radio button and get a quick look at it. It looks like it was stamped as confidential, that there were redactions on it, and perhaps I'm curious as to what this record looked like in the Chicago production. It was almost a year later in 2009, and I can take a quick look by clicking on the Chicago production from the drop-down, and we can see that it looks pretty different. Different redactions, it looked like it was not confidential then, and so it's an easy way to view all the various productions and see the differences between them without having to look through the different databases or having a convoluted workflow. Any questions about the native file viewer?